The void trembled as alarms screamed through the fractured starship Elysian Dawn. Captain Elias Kane gripped the command rail while sparks rained from broken panels. He whispered, "Not again, not another failure," as the crew fought chaos. The ship, once a beacon of exploration, now spun helplessly toward a dying star. The galaxy's silence broke when a signal pulsed across every channel, an ancient voice echoing with fury older than creation. Dr. Liora Vance gasped, "It's not a transmission, it's a memory?" The voice rumbled, promising unraveling and rebirth, and Elias felt a shadow claw through his mind. The forgotten god had awakened, and in that instant, the universe seemed to recoil. He shouted, "Steady her, or we're all ash." But deep inside, he knew this was no ordinary distress. It was a beginning, and endings were written in its tone. The starship groaned under cosmic weight, every rivet screaming like a dying beast. Elias steadied himself, forcing his fear down, but his chest ached with guilt that never left. Liora whispered, "It spoke of rebirth, through fire." He met her gaze, memories of past failures burning behind his scarred face. "Then we stop it before it begins," he said, though doubt lingered in his tone. The voice had not been mere noise. It clawed at their minds, weaving despair and awe into every syllable. Crew members muttered prayers, while others froze, eyes glazed by the psychic echo. The dying star pulsed brighter, as though answering the voice. In that moment, Elias understood. This was no random disaster. It was deliberate, orchestrated by something older than their history. He clenched his fists, but the tremor in his arms betrayed his fear. The first act of their fight against the end of the universe had begun. The crew scrambled to restore control, yet the starship resisted as if bound by unseen chains. Liora's voice shook as she said, "The signal. It's not a warning, it's a summons." Elias closed his eyes, recalling battlefields where his command had led to ruin. The god's voice returned, softer now, slithering like smoke. "Children of dust, I rise." The words pressed against his skull, each syllable heavy with inevitability. A young ensign screamed, collapsing as blood trickled from his nose. The crew recoiled, terror thickening the air. Elias forced his voice steady, "Lock it down. We don't yield to phantoms." But as he spoke, the ship's lights dimmed, replaced by an eerie golden glow that pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat. The bridge became a temple, unwillingly consecrated to something vast and merciless. The hum deepened into a rhythm, like a heartbeat echoing across galaxies. Liora's lips parted in awe as she whispered, "It's alive." Elias barked, shut it down, but his order fell into silence. Every console froze, screens filled with alien glyphs shifting endlessly. The crew backed away, some covering their ears, though no sound filled the air. Elias felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing down. He thought of his sister, lost years ago in a failed mission. Was this his punishment or hers? The golden pulse throbbed again, and the ship shook, dragged further toward the dying star. "This is no malfunction," Elias muttered, his voice breaking. Liora's gaze locked with his, a mix of fear and wonder. "Captain," she said, "we are standing inside its dream." The forgotten god's dream thickened, every shadow alive with intent. Elias staggered, gripping the console as visions consumed him. Burning galaxies, shattering worlds, rivers of light unraveling into void. He gasped for breath, his body shaking as though he bore the cosmos collapse inside him. Liora reached for him, whispering, "Fight it, Elias." Her words trembled, but they carried warmth. He clung to them, his heartbeat syncing with hers instead of the god's. For a moment, he remembered humanity, fragile yet fierce. The golden glow flared, then receded, leaving charred panels and silence. The crew, pale and trembling, looked to their captain. He straightened, voice hoarse but firm. "We will not be its heralds. We are not its slaves." The universe had shifted, and though terror loomed, defiance sparked in the darkness. The ship drifted beyond the star's reach, scarred but intact, as silence fell heavy across the bridge. Elias felt the weight of 100 eyes pressing into him, waiting for orders he did not want to give. Dr. Liora whispered, "They're afraid of you, Elias, not the god." His jaw clenched as guilt burned deeper than fear. He said, "I failed once. I will not fail again." The crew stirred, their exhaustion etched in pale faces, prayers whispered into the void. From the far deck, Lieutenant Joran Hale, a 40-year-old man with hardened features, muttered, "Then lead us, Captain, or we're already dead." The words struck like a blade, pulling Elias into the role he despised. Shadows of leadership and loss coiled tighter, binding him to the fate he tried to escape. The forgotten god's voice lingered, faint but eternal, as though daring him to rise or be consumed. The hum of the dying star faded, replaced by the hiss of failing systems. Liora studied the alien glyphs etched into the consoles, her eyes sharp despite trembling hands. She said, "This isn't technology. It's scripture." Elias leaned closer, anger battling fear. "Then it's not just in our systems. It's in us." Crew murmurs grew uneasy as whispers spread. Lieutenant Joran spat bitterly. "If it's inside us, we're already doomed." Elias turned sharply, his voice steel. "We fight, not surrender." Yet inside, doubt swirled. He saw faces of the fallen, shadows of those he lost. For a heartbeat, the bridge was a tomb of memory. Then Liora's hand brushed his sleeve, grounding him. "We're not doomed," she said softly. "We're chosen." The word hung like both curse and salvation, echoing through the fractured silence of the bridge. The bridge doors slid open with a metallic groan, and a survivor stumbled inside. Her skin bore burns, her clothes torn, eyes wide with feral memory. She was Selene Ward, a 29-year-old woman, survivor of an unknown wreck. "I heard it," she whispered, voice raw. "The god calls worlds to ash." Gasps rippled through the crew as they stared at her ruined figure. Elias stepped forward, asking, "Where did you come from?" Selene's gaze locked with his, wild and haunted. "From where it began. From where it already ended." Liora steadied the woman, her compassion soft but fearful. Joran muttered, "We don't need broken strays." Elias snapped, "She's a witness. She stays." Selene trembled, tears carving lines through soot, her presence pulling the crew into silence. A survivor, broken yet unyielding, had entered their doomed circle. Selene's voice cracked as she spoke of her escape. An entire colony, gone in a breath. Not war, not nature. Him. The word dripped like poison, and the bridge grew still. Elias studied her, torn between pity and terror. Liora placed a hand on Selene's shoulder, saying gently, "You lived because you were meant to." Selene flinched, whispering, "I lived because I ran." Joran sneered, "And now you bring us death." Elias's glare silenced him. "No," he said, "she brings us truth." His words carried weight, though fear edged each syllable. The crew shifted uneasily, hope flickering and dying in equal measure. Outside, the dying star pulsed weaker, as though listening. Elias felt it, the universe holding its breath. A survivor's tale had become prophecy, and the crew stood at the edge of faith and despair. Elias retreated into silence, watching Selene's haunted eyes. In them, he saw his own failures mirrored. He whispered, "The god is no myth, it's hunger." The crew froze, the weight of his admission heavier than any command. Liora stood firm, her gaze bright with defiance. "Then we starve it." Her words cut like a blade of hope. Joran shook his head, muttering, "You can't starve eternity." Selene's lips trembled, but she whispered, "I saw stars fight him. They died, but they fought." The room fell quiet, the weight of her words binding them. Elias inhaled deeply, shoulders straightening as resolve returned. He turned to his crew and said, "We fight too, not because we can win, but because we must." For the first time since the god's awakening, silence did not feel like surrender. It felt like preparation. Darkness fell as the Elysian Dawn drifted beyond the reach of the dying star, its hull groaning like a wounded beast. Elias felt his pulse echo the silence, every breath heavy with dread. Selene whispered, "It follows us." The voice never stops. Her eyes darted, as if haunted by unseen fire. Joran sneered, "Then maybe death travels faster than we do." Elias turned sharply, the scar on his cheek burning with memory. "No," he said firmly, "death waits for cowards, not for us." The crew shifted uneasily, torn between despair and defiance. Then, through static, another voice bled into the comms, soft, cunning, and unfamiliar. It murmured coordinates, laced with promise. Liora's brow furrowed as she whispered, "Someone, or something, is guiding us." Suspicion rippled like a wave. Was it salvation, or another trap woven by the Forgotten God? The coordinates pointed to a derelict station adrift among shattered moons. Its silhouette loomed, broken yet alive with faint pulses of energy. Elias muttered, "It shouldn't be here." Selene clutched her arms, whispering, "It shouldn't still breathe." Joran scoffed, "If it's a trap, better it ends now." Liora's eyes gleamed with curiosity that cut through fear. "No," she said, "it's a key." The comms crackled again, the same secretive voice urging them forward. It was neither hostile nor kind, but calculated, waiting. Elias felt the weight of choice pressing like a vice. Lead them into shadows, or turn away and face an emptier doom. His chest rose and fell, heavy with the burden of command. Finally, he said, "Prepare for docking." Hope and dread braided tighter as the station grew, a tomb waiting to be opened. The docking clamps shuddered as the ship locked onto the broken station. Inside the airlock, Elias stood flanked by Liora, Selene, and Joran, their faces pale in dim glow. The station hissed as its doors creaked open, stale air carrying whispers of forgotten lives. Selene trembled, muttering, "I've seen this in my dreams." Liora's voice steadied, "Dreams or warnings, both are maps." Joran chuckled coldly, "Or graves." Elias drew his weapon, not for comfort but defiance. As they stepped inside, alien glyphs illuminated faintly, lighting their path with a sickly gold. Every footstep echoed like prayer. The station pulsed with energy as though aware of them. Elias whispered, "Someone brought us here. Someone wanted this meeting." Behind every shadow lay the suspicion of betrayal, seeds already taking root among them. The station's core chamber unfolded like a cathedral of steel and shadow. A lone figure stood at its heart, cloaked in light and secrecy. Their voice carried through the chamber, familiar from the comms. "You came. Good." Elias raised his weapon, voice sharp, "Who are you?" The figure lowered their hood, revealing pale features and eyes that shimmered with intelligence and secrecy. This was Kalen Dross, the hidden ally. "I am no enemy," Kalen said calmly, "but I am not your savior either." Liora whispered, "You guided us." Kalen smirked faintly. "Guided? Perhaps? Manipulated? Certainly." Selene gasped, retreating a step, while Joran's sneer deepened. Tension coiled thick as chains. Elias felt the truth pressing. Their survival now rested on the motives of one who lived in shadows. Kalen's words dripped with both promise and peril. "The god you fear is not your destroyer. It is your mirror." His tone cut through silence, each syllable deliberate. Elias frowned, voice rough. "You speak in riddles while we bleed." Kalen's gaze flickered with cold amusement. "Truth is always a riddle." Liora's voice rose, steady but defiant. "If you know the truth, share it." Selene stepped forward, whispering, "He was there. I saw him in the fire." Kalen's eyes lingered on her. Unreadable. Joran spat, "Enough riddles. Why should we trust a ghost in the dark?" Kalen's smirk faded as his voice hardened. "Because without me, you will not survive what comes next." The chamber pulsed brighter, as though agreeing. For a moment, no one breathed. The Forgotten God's shadows seemed to stretch closer, unseen but undeniable. The chamber pulsed as though it were alive, walls shifting with glyphs that mirrored their movements. Kalen's calm voice cut through the silence. "The god is bound to bloodlines, to yours, Captain." Elias froze, his scarred face pale beneath the golden light. "You lie," he hissed, though part of him knew it was true. Liora stepped forward, whispering, "That's why it reached for you first." The air thickened as the glyphs brightened, glowing with recognition. Selene clutched her chest, gasping. "It knows him." Joran's laughter was sharp, bitter. "Our leader is its chosen vessel." Elias slammed his fist against the console, shouting, "I will not be its weapon." Yet even as he spoke, shadows stirred across the chamber, curling like chains seeking their prisoner. The truth had cracked the air open, and no denial could mend it. The god's voice thundered inside their minds, weaving guilt and destiny into chains. "You are my echo, Elias. My herald." Elias dropped to one knee, clutching his skull as pain seared through him. Liora knelt beside him, whispering, "Fight it, Elias. You are not bound." Selene's wide eyes filled with tears. "This is how it began for my world," she said, her voice trembling. Joran's hand hovered over his weapon, his mistrust now laced with fear. Kalen's gaze lingered coldly, detached as if expecting this outcome. The chamber pulsed harder, the glyphs dancing with rhythm like a heartbeat. Elias growled through the agony, "I am no god's slave." His defiance burned, but doubt gnawed like fire beneath the skin. Around them the chamber vibrated, groaning as though the truth itself was too heavy for its walls. When the chamber calmed, silence carried heavier than thunder. Joran broke it with venom. "He's already lost. We follow a man tied to the god we fear." Elias rose slowly, scar burning like fire across his face. His voice rasped, "I am tied by blood, not by will." Selene stepped forward, shaking but brave. "My world burned because no one defied it. Defy it, and I will follow." Her words stirred the crew, hope fragile yet real. Liora's eyes glimmered as she whispered, "You are proof we can choose." Joran spat, "Or proof we will fall faster." Kalen smiled faintly, voice calm but edged. "Chains bind, but chains can be wielded." Elias's jaw clenched as he met each gaze. The choice was before them. Follow fear into ruin or rally against it, even at the edge of betrayal. Whispers spread through the crew as word of Elias's bloodline reached them. Panic grew sharp, turning faces pale with mistrust. Officer shouted, "He's its herald!" Before Elias could respond, Joran seized the moment, voice booming. "He is the god's chosen. Follow him, and you follow extinction." Murmurs swelled, fear transforming into anger. Liora stepped forward, defiant. "He is not a herald, he is our shield." Her words cracked through the tension, but the crew's loyalty trembled. Selene backed her with a desperate cry. "He is the only one who defied it." Yet suspicion thickened like smoke, suffocating hope. Elias's fists tightened, his silence louder than words. Kalen watched with calculated detachment, eyes glinting like a player in a game. The crew stood on the edge of mutiny, trust unraveling as shadows deepened. The confrontation fractured into silence when the ship shuddered violently. Outside, the Forgotten God's shadow swept across the stars, vast and formless. Its whisper pierced every mind. One vessel. One destiny. Elias staggered, clutching the rail, his face twisted in anguish. Liora held his arm, her voice steady. "You are not it. You are you." Selene shouted, "Fight!" The crew faltered, caught between fear and hope. Joran snarled, "He cannot resist forever." Kalen's voice cut sharply. "Resistance is survival. Even chains can be turned against their master." Elias lifted his head, eyes burning, voice raw but resolute. "I will not carry its will. I will fight until it breaks me." Silence followed, broken only by the hum of the god's presence. In that moment, leadership was no longer chosen. It was forced upon him. Tension simmered across the bridge, fragile as glass. Elias stood silent, watching the crew splinter into whispers of fear and suspicion. Joran's voice broke the silence like a blade. "He is cursed. He is the god's puppet." The crew stirred uneasily, eyes darting toward Elias. Selene trembled, whispering, "I saw the god burn worlds. I know its hunger. But he fights it." Liora placed her hand firmly on Elias's shoulder. "He is not its vessel. He is our resistance." Kalen remained in the shadows, his smirk unreadable. Joran's sneer deepened, his words sharp as venom. Resistance or surrender in disguise? The atmosphere thickened, crew torn between hope and betrayal. Elias's scar burned as he declared, "No god commands me, but men who betray will destroy us faster." His words fell heavy, marking Joran as the crack in their fragile unity. The crack became a chasm when alarms flared, warning of another presence. The viewport revealed warships emerging from the void, their insignia bearing the mark of the antagonist, Lord Varric Thane, 45-year-old male warlord. Elias whispered bitterly, "He found us." Joran's lips curled into a smile too sharp for comfort. "Perhaps he's what we need." Selene gasped, stepping back. "You knew." Liora's voice rose, furious. "You betrayed us." Joran shrugged coldly. "I chose survival. You chose a doomed captain." Kalen's eyes narrowed, voice like steel. "Survival has many faces, Lieutenant. Yours stinks of weakness." The crew erupted in chaos, trust shattered like glass. Outside, the warships loomed closer, engines burning like judgment. Elias clenched his fists, fury cutting through despair. If he sides with them, he chooses death for us all. The moment of betrayal had arrived. Joran's betrayal struck deeper than any wound. He activated a hidden beacon, his voice laced with triumph. "Varric will purge the god's shadow, and you with it." Selene lunged forward, eyes blazing with fury. "You doom us all." Liora pulled her back, whispering, "Don't waste yourself on a coward." Kalen stepped closer to Joran, his voice low, dangerous. "Warlords do not kill gods, they serve them without knowing." Joran sneered, but a flicker of fear betrayed him. Elias's voice boomed, cutting through the chaos. "You've chosen chains over freedom, Joran, but I will not wear them." The crew looked on, torn between betrayal and defiance. Outside, Varric's fleet grew closer, weapons primed. Within, trust shattered, Elias realized survival now depended not on loyalty, but on sheer resolve to fight betrayal with unity forged in fire. The docking clamps groaned as Varric's warships surrounded the station. Through the viewport, the warlord appeared via hollow transmission, tall, armored, with eyes cold as void. "Elias Kane," Varric said, "you lead my enemy's voice. Surrender, or burn." Elias's jaw tightened as he replied, "I've burned before. Fire does not frighten me." Varric's gaze shifted to Joran. "And you, my faithful hand, have served well." Joran smirked, vindicated. Selene spat at the floor, whispering, "Traitor." Liora's eyes burned as she hissed, "You traded us for an executioner." Kalen folded his arms, voice calm but cutting. "Warlords promise survival, but deliver ash." Varric's hologram leaned closer, his presence suffocating. "Choose wisely, Kane. Live beneath me or die against me." The chamber shook with his voice, but Elias's defiance only hardened. The crew erupted in chaos, torn between Varric's demand and Elias's defiance. Joran shouted, "He cannot save you. Varric offers life." Elias's voice roared above the storm. "Varric offers chains. I offer struggle. Choose." Selene stepped forward, trembling but fierce. "I will fight, even if I die." Liora stood beside Elias, her hand on his arm, her voice clear. "Then we fight together." Kalen smirked, eyes sharp. "So, the lines are drawn." Varric's hologram darkened, voice thunderous. "So be it. You will die screaming." The transmission vanished as alarms screamed louder, targeting locks flashing across screens. Joran backed toward the exit, betrayal etched in his every step. Elias's gaze followed, steel in his voice. "Run, traitor. The god and the warlord will consume you both." The crew steadied themselves, their rebellion born in fire. The void ignited as Varric's warships unleashed fire upon the station, beams tearing across its fractured hull. The Elysian Dawn shook under the first barrage, alarms shrieking. Elias stood firm at the command rail, voice sharp. "Shields to full. We hold." Liora's fingers danced across her console, whispering, "We won't last long." Selene gritted her teeth, whispering, "We've lived through worse." Joran's absence weighed heavy, his betrayal now a shadow among them. Kalen's voice carried cool certainty. "Survival demands blood. Whose it is remains your choice." The viewport flared as Varric's flagship loomed, vast and merciless. Elias clenched his scarred jaw, rage and determination entwined. "Then we bleed, but not for him." The first salvo struck again, and the war began with thunder that shook the stars. Varric's face filled the hollow display, eyes glinting with cruel triumph. "This ends now, Kane. Kneel or burn." Elias spat. "I've burned before. Fire does not frighten me." Varric's voice thundered, "Then your crew will scream for you." Selene slammed her hand against the console. "He will not take us." Liora whispered urgently, "Elias, weapons are primed, but we'll break ourselves to fire them." Kalen's tone was calm, chilling. "Sometimes destruction is survival's price." The station groaned as the god's shadow darkened space, its presence twisting the battlefield. Crew members faltered, clutching their heads as whispers clawed at their minds. Elias's scar seared like fire. He raised his voice above chaos, "Target his flagship. If we fall, we take him with us." His words burned, turning fear into defiance. The battle erupted into chaos. Warships traded fire, explosions painting the void with violent light. Inside, Selene screamed over the din, "He's here. The god is feeding on this war." Elias felt the truth clawing at his mind, the whispers stronger, urging him to yield. Liora's hand gripped his arm, her voice trembling but steady. "Fight it. You're more than its blood." Kalen's eyes narrowed, voice sharp. "If he falls, we all fall." Elias roared back, "I am not its vessel." The god's shadow stretched across stars, twisting light and tearing reality's edge. Varric's laughter echoed over comms. "You are already mine, Kane." Fury rose, not just against the god but against Varric's chains. Elias's voice cracked through chaos. "We fight, not for gods, not for tyrants, for ourselves." The god's presence thickened, bending gravity and light. The bridge trembled as cracks formed in steel. Selene clutched her head, crying, "He's inside all of us." Crew members collapsed, blood streaking from noses. Kalen shouted, "This battlefield is his altar." Elias gritted his teeth, forcing clarity through pain. He barked, "Liora, reroute weapons, aim everything we have at Varric's flagship." Liora's eyes widened in disbelief. "That blast will tear us apart too." Elias shouted back, "Then let it." Selene's tear-filled gaze locked on him. "You'll kill us all." Elias shook his head. "Better death than chains." The god's voice echoed across every skull. "You are mine." Elias screamed against it. "I am no one's." His defiance shook the crew, their fear hardening into desperate courage. The final strike was being prepared. The weapons surged, light gathering like the birth of a star. Varric's flagship loomed, its weapons aimed in return. Liora whispered, voice breaking, "This is suicide." Elias's scar burned like fire, but his gaze stayed steady. "This is freedom." Selene stood, trembling but resolute, whispering, "Then I die fighting." Kalen's cloak rippled as he smirked grimly. "So the pawns become players." Varric's voice thundered across comms. "You are dust before me." Elias shouted, voice raw with defiance. then let dust bury tyrants and gods alike. The ship unleashed its full power, beams converging into a storm of destruction. The battlefield erupted, light consuming everything in furious brilliance. In that instant, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, balanced on the edge between annihilation and survival. The blast faded, leaving silence across the void. Varric's flagship crumbled into fire, fragments scattering like dying stars. The Elysian Dawn drifted, its hull scorched, systems flickering in exhaustion. Elias stood at the rail, his body trembling, scar burning as if carved deeper by destiny. Liora whispered, "It's over." Yet the air felt heavy, the god's shadows still curling across the stars. Selene's hollow eyes filled with tears. No, gods don't end, they wait. Kalen smirked faintly, his cloak torn, his voice calm. A victory bought in blood, temporary, fragile. Crew members moved like ghosts, haunted by what they had endured. Elias whispered into the silence, "Then we endure longer than it." The universe held its breath, as though unsure if defiance had truly won. The wreckage floated beyond the viewport, twisted steel glimmering like a graveyard. Elias's reflection merged with the ruin, his scar cutting across light and shadow. He whispered, "How many more before it ends?" Liora touched his arm gently. "It ends when we choose it does." Her eyes carried hope, fragile but burning. Selene hugged herself, voice low. "Hope is a cruel lie. My world believed, and it died." Kalen stepped forward, his tone sharp but strangely reverent. "Hope is a blade. Wield it and it cuts both ways." Silence pressed heavy, the crew too weary to speak. Elias drew a breath, voice steady but hollow. "Then let hope be our weapon. If it kills us, so be it." The words hung like an oath, binding them to defiance even in despair. The forgotten gods' whispers stirred again, faint yet endless, slithering across their thoughts. Dust cannot defy eternity. Elias clutched the rail, voice hoarse but unbroken. "Then, eternity will bleed trying." Selene shuddered, whispering, "It still wants you." Liora shook her head, voice clear. "No, it fears him." Kalen's smirk faded into solemn stillness. Fear and hunger are the same for gods. They consume what they dread. The chamber pulsed faintly with dying glyphs, shadows stretching unnaturally. Crew members froze, uncertain if victory had been illusion. Elias lifted his chin, determination etched in scar and stare. "We are still here? That is enough." The god's voice faded into silence, not defeated, but waiting. The silence itself became a battlefield. The survivors gathered in the mess hall, its walls scarred, lights dim. Silence reigned until Selene raised her trembling voice. "Why us? Why do we survive when so many don't?" Liora smiled faintly, eyes tired yet gentle. "Because someone must tell the story." Kalen leaned back, cloak draped like shadow, speaking softly. "Stories are weapons sharper than blades. Use them well." Elias stood among them, his voice heavy with scars and defiance. "We survived because we chose not to kneel. That choice is all we have." The crew's eyes lifted, some with hope, others with weariness. In that moment, survival was not triumph, but proof. Proof that even against gods and tyrants, fragile beings could still choose to resist. The air carried quiet strength, fragile yet unbroken. Later, Elias stood alone at the viewport, the stars stretching endless and cold. His reflection stared back, scar lined with pain and defiance. He whispered, "If I am its vessel, then I will be its cage." The silence offered no answer, only the hum of wounded systems. Liora approached quietly, her hand brushing his arm. "You are more than it, Elias. You always were." He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them, gaze hard. Selene's voice echoed faintly behind them, hopeful yet haunted. "If gods wait, so will we." Kalen's chuckle drifted softly, words like smoke. "The universe never ends. Neither do wars." Elias exhaled, voice steady. Then let us be its last whisper of defiance. The stars remained silent, carrying his vow into eternity.